Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're enjoying your SauceCon event. I'm sure that there's a lot of very interesting content, and I hope it's meaningful to all of you. My name is Justin Dolly, and I'm the Chief Security Officer at Sauce Labs. As part of this conversation with the theme that we have of test better together, I figured that we could talk about how we test safer together. What I'll do is I'll talk about our security program at Sauce. I'll also talk a little bit about through the many conversations I've had with customers since I joined Sauce earlier this year in January. The conversations that we've had around their concerns, questions about how Sauce should be levered, how our services should be leveraged, and how our products should be used. And so I want to take what we've learned from those conversations and share them with you, and hopefully they'll be useful. And that is the special ops bot. Socially distancing, just to be clear. A little about me. I've been in technology for more than 25 years, and I've been leading security in particular at public and private companies for 20 years. I've been at places like VMware and Macromedia, Malwarebytes and ServiceNow, and a smattering of others. I've also led other parts of the business in engineering, I've led IT, privacy, and customer success teams, giving me the advantage of not just securing a business, but running a business. So I understand the trade-offs between sometimes security and some of the deficiencies that we might have in our products and our services, and the flexibility we need to have in order to be able to provide amazing services to our customers. It also means in security that I've been testing for a really long time. So I find it that security and test live very close together. I see them as bedfellows in a number of ways. Obviously, from a security perspective, we do lots and lots of testing. It's slightly different than some of the testing that you all do, but it's not vastly different. And in fact, over the years, as I've worked at various companies, I've engaged with test teams and QA teams to leverage their expertise in allowing for security tests to occur alongside the tests that you all do as a matter of course. I think that test along with security also happens too late in the process oftentimes. And it's very difficult to recover from that. When you find out problems late, it gives you less time to resolve them before you have to launch or before you have to make a deadline and so on. So in those situations, we find ourselves in similar situations. But I believe that with security and test together, the earlier we can get them involved in the process, the richer the process will be, the quality of the product and services will be better, and fundamentally, a rising tide lifts all boats. So some security elements we want to talk about at Sauce. First of all, I'll talk about our program, give you an idea of some of the areas of focus we have inside of Sauce Labs from a security perspective, and generally the scope of the team's role. We'll talk about SauceConnect. We get lots and lots of questions about SauceConnect. How does it work? How should we use it? What are the dangers? Those sorts of things. We'll talk about that a little bit. We'll also talk about real devices. So in this time of sheltering in place and staying at home and not being able to go into our offices and our labs, we find ourselves in a situation where we have to try and test with devices that are not within our grasp. And so one of our products, one of our services that has become extremely popular in this new world is our real devices environments. We have a couple of different offerings, and I wanted to discuss the trade-offs, if you like, or the considerations that you need to bear in mind as you are considering which one of these to use. So first of all, security at Sauce Labs. We have a global focus. We've obviously got people all over the world. We have data centers in EMEA. We also have data centers in the US. And we want to make sure that from a product perspective, from an infrastructure perspective, and so on, that security is one of those elements that stripes all the way through from beginning to end in the process. That starts with architecture and design, all the way through engineering and into deployment and operations. It's very important to us that we're a security first company, that we consider all the security elements and make sure that we're considering what the risks might be as we choose to leverage a particular library or design a particular feature or expose a particular service to customers. It also means that we have a responsibility for all of you, our customers, as you grow and scale, and as your testing initiatives become deeper and wider, that we're able to grow and scale with you and be able to provide you with an efficient service that can deliver exactly what it is that you need, but ensure that it's a secure service and you can have confidence in it. As part of that, we also have a big focus on compliance. We have a number of compliance initiatives that have been kicked off already. Upon my arrival, having worked at places like VMware and ServiceNow and so on, I'm cognizant of customers want that security providers and cloud providers in general have gone through these compliance initiatives to illustrate that they've got a baseline of security controls which the customer can trust. So with that in mind, we're dedicated to delivering quality. And so therefore we've undertaken some compliance initiatives to make sure that we are targeting those needs and building your confidence in our ability to deliver against those security controls. With that in mind, we're currently pursuing a SOC 2 certification, which many of you, a lot of our customers have asked us for. And through a change in our environments, we rescoped our environment, and we're currently undergoing an audit process to achieve SOC 2 this year. We like to be data-driven. I think that gut can be valuable, your gut instinct can be valuable, but nothing trumps data. I think that if the data tells a story, it is the right story to listen to. And so we make a lot of our security and risk decisions based on the data, first and foremost. So our responsibility is to gather as much as we possibly can, because it informs our conversations and gives us context for some of the decisions we're going to make. Along with that, and similar to the compliance conversation, we want to build customer trust. Engaging with customers is something that's important to me. I've done quite a lot of it already since my arrival at Sauce Labs. Perhaps I've engaged with some of your teammates at your companies. A lot of those conversations are rooted in our customers wanted to build their confidence in our security program. And so that's what partially this talk is designed to do. There are privacy concerns, there are security concerns that you may have, and it's our job to alleviate those and to provide you with guidance surrounding our initiatives and how we're going to deliver against them. So let's talk about SauceConnect. For those of you who don't know, SauceConnect is an HTTP proxy that we provide that allows for you to be able to leverage our service to test your non-public assets. It's very seldom that you would deploy test code, whether it's an app or a website or something like that, somewhere publicly, and then test it there to see if it's going to work. This is what we have staging environments for, and QA environments and so on. So those staging and QA environments tend not to be public for a variety of reasons. You don't want to put something out there that may not work correctly. You also, from a security perspective, might not want to expose something inadvertently. So you haven't gone through your complete process. Therefore, there may still be some remnants in there of internal content that you would pull out before you go into production. Internal host names, internal certificates, things like that. So you want the ability to be able to test things inside your own environment. That environment can be your laptop. It can be localhost on your laptop running there, and SauceConnect can connect to your laptop and be able to do the testing you need. Also, that content is more likely, if you're at a larger organization, deployed behind a corporate firewall. And so we need the ability to be able to connect in behind that firewall to access those assets that you wish to test. And so there are some considerations which we'll go into next surrounding how we should do that and how you should leverage it. It's good to know that SauceConnect is encrypted using transport layer security and also uses perfect forward secrecy for maximum security. For those who don't know, who may not be familiar with perfect forward secrecy, it is a rekeying mechanism that occurs when data is moving in transit, so that in the unlikely event that an attacker would get hold of a key that's being used to encrypt the channel, the rekeying ensures that they don't get an awful lot of the data, and they can only get a snippet of it, and then the rekeying means that they would have to then crack that additional key. Tunnel types. So when thinking about SauceConnect, there are two tunnel types. There's ephemeral or short-lived tunnels. Most primarily used for testing on your laptop. As I said earlier, if you've got the host sitting on your laptop, you point SauceConnect to localhost and you're able to do the testing there. It's also useful if you're using orchestration to start your tunnels using Bamboo or Jenkins or similar tools. Also, if you're going to start and stop often. So if there isn't a large battery of tests that are running in sequence that you feel like you're able to be nimble in your testing, see how things are going, stop it, start it again. Those things are useful when using ephemeral tunnels. And we have long-running tunnels, which generally speaking are for sort of larger enterprise customers. They're much more useful given that the tunnel's there. It's always there. You don't have to worry about it being instantiated again and whether it's been disconnected or dropped. Generally better used for environments where lots and lots of large tests are being done and when the testing is being shared across multiple groups, which is you can share the tunnel with multiple groups, which we'll get into a little bit later as well. Very useful as well where you're using automation for testing. Lots and lots of automation going on in tests these days. And so you don't have to wait for tunnels to be instantiated and so on. It's good to know that the tunnel's already there and you can just start your tests. You can use these two in combination. You can start a tunnel from your laptop while connected to a long-running tunnel. Why would you do that? Well, there's some flexibility that's afforded there with your ephemeral tunnel. You can maybe change the routing in the ephemeral tunnel so that you can route to something else that may not be permitted inside of the long-running tunnel. There's lots and lots of flexibility there to allow you to test lots and lots of things. The good thing to know though is although this ephemeral tunnel is running over the long-running tunnel, it won't damage it in any way. The long-running tunnel will stay up and it won't break any existing test efforts that are going on at your organization. Tunnel implementation is a big question that I get asked an awful lot. We talk about customers about, how should we do this? Where should we put the tunnel? Some of the issues that we found have been when customers deploy or terminate the tunnel on a non-enterprise grade device, like a non-enterprise router, a router maybe for consumer or small business or something like that. Those devices aren't really designed to support things like tunnel termination and crypto mapping and various other things that are required from a technical perspective. So routers are perfectly fine. Firewalls, of course, are designed for these types of functions. Those are devices that make an awful lot of sense when you're terminating tunnels, and you want them to be stable and make sure that they don't have any issues. Tunnel gateway runs a firewall through which only authorized VMs can connect. By default, all VMs are blocked, just like you would expect with a firewall. Traffic, it's designed not to route traffic, but to block it. Firewall rules are dynamically adjusted to allow connections for new authorized VMs and block connections from terminated ones. So if you once had an authorized VM, which we'll talk about in a second, and the testing completes and it finishes and so on, that VM gets burned down and removed, is no longer an authorized VM. If that VM were to be spun back up again, even if it were named the same thing and it looked and felt like the same thing, it wouldn't be authorized anymore. So it's important to know that only the VMs that you need and the ones that have been authorized are the ones that can leverage the tunnel. An authorized VM is defined by a VM created by the tunnel owner or created by an account with whom the tunnel has been shared. Like I said, back to the long-running tunnels, you can actually share them amongst multiple teams when there's lots of testing going on. SauceConnect and SSL certificate bumping. One of the questions that I get asked quite a bit is around how we handle the issue of self-signed or internal SSL certificates. SSL certificates are not cheap, they're quite expensive actually. And commonly when testing in QA environments and staging environments and so on, and within development for sure, real certificates, it's rare that you go and get real certificates and use those for your testing purposes. Generally speaking, it's because Certificate has to match the host name of the machine or the site name that you've delivered. You're not going to call it your production site, so it would mean that you would have to buy additional real SSL certificates for your testing. It's cost prohibitive for most organizations and not really something that you would want to do. One of the ways you can tackle it is that by using wildcard SSL certs. That would certainly lower your cost. However, it does increase your security exposure. A wildcard SSL certificate for, let's say, star.yourcompany.com can be kind of a dangerous thing if it ends up in the wrong hands. So it's one of those things that you definitely want to wrap your security around. If you do want to use wildcard certificates, make sure that you don't leak it or post it somewhere or share it with anybody, because then, of course, somebody could impersonate your company very, very easily and launch phishing campaigns and deliver malware and various other things if they have a valid wildcard cert for your company name. That wouldn't just hurt you and your customers, it would also hurt your brand in a very, very big way. So one thing to bear in mind. These self-signed and internal certificates are obviously not trusted by stock browsers. So that's the reason why they throw an error. And you will have seen this error many, many times if you're doing lots of testing. Certificate name does not match site name is a typical one. Expired and various other errors exist as well, but that's generally the one that you would get. The problem is Selenium doesn't deal well with that error. It can't get past it. It can't dismiss it. So basically tests get interrupted when you encounter that error. So how do we fix that? So we've created a fix called SSL bumping, and SSL bumping is enabled by default when you download SauceConnect. Bumping means that we have a trusted certificate, which is trusted by the browsers. And it means that we replace that internal certificate with ours so that Selenium and the browsers and so on don't get an error message. And therefore allows all the tests to be completed without running into lots and lots of error messages and dealing with issues. It's good to know that you can disable SSL bumping for known domains and subdomains. If you really do want to experience the complete experience, errors and everything, you can absolutely do that. And there are reasons why you would want to do that, of course. However, we think it's a pretty elegant solution for a known issue where we've got a lot of people feedback from customers that this has been a big problem for them. Incidentally, in some parts of the world, this is a technique that some governments and regimes use to snoop or track on internet traffic of their citizens. You connect via HTTPS, TLS is invoked. You believe that that your traffic is encrypted, but at internet gateways and by the use of certificates and so on, there are ways for governments and regimes to be able to track your traffic as you surf the internet. The SauceConnect team has been heads down on delivering feature requests for you, our customers, and some of the feedback that we've gotten is that SauceConnect, although everybody's easily able to deal with starting and stopping of tunnels from command line, we're all bright people. But one of the feature requests that they've gotten is if it's possible to produce a GUI interface. So a GUI interface to be able to start tunnels, see tunnel configuration information, and change tunnel targets, for example, to a different data center, and also to be able to see status. So the team have provided me with some previews. This is what the interface would look like for instantiating the SauceConnect tunnel. I believe this can be viewed from the tunnels page in the configuration management. You would start your tunnel from here. You can see the tunnel configurator, allowing for access keys, tunnel identifiers, which data center you want to go to, however close you want the information to come back to you. And this is what it looks like when your tunnel's actually connected. It echoes back all of the tunnel status back to you as though you were at a command line. But a feature that we've been asked for, and the team is going to be delivering over the coming weeks. So really exciting stuff. I want to talk about real devices. Again, in this time where we can't reach out and touch some of the things that we really want to reach out and touch from a technology perspective, although we're all comfortable with cloud and virtual and all that sort of stuff, there is real testing that needs to occur. And with the proliferation of new hardware and new devices and so on, it's useful to be able to get your hands on your test carts that have all these devices on them. However, if you can't go to the office, you can't really do that. This is where we can help. We have our real device environments, which have, as I said, become very, very popular over these past few weeks of this COVID-19 world we're living in. So I want to talk about some security aspects of the real devices. Access to real devices. The devices are located in our secure data centers. As you would expect, the data centers have stringent security controls, physical security controls in particular, guards and dogs and all that sort of stuff, and cameras, but also badging and biometric scanning and all those sorts of things in order to be able to get into the facility. And then the security is further and further back throughout your facility until you get to where our environment is. The devices themselves are connected to a secure Wi-Fi network, and only our devices can connect to that network. We put lots of Wi-Fi security elements in place to ensure that only the devices get connected. The devices have to have specific proxy information in order to be able to connect to the network at all. So it's not just a device gets plugged in our environment. First of all, it couldn't connect to the Wi-Fi. Even if it could find a way to connect to the Wi-Fi, only the devices must have specific information to be able to listen to or talk to that network. Access management is something that's very, very important to us. So only specific individuals are allowed physical access to the environment or logical access. A slightly larger number of people get logical access to the devices. The number of people that get access to the actual physical devices is very, very small. Very, very closely managed, and any and all access attempts are logged, whether they are virtual or physical. One important thing to note is we don't use remote hands or a third party to do this. Lots and lots of data center providers allow for remote hands, is what they call it. Their staff to be able to walk into your cage and go to a certain rack and pop open the door and power off a particular server or unplug a particular cable. We don't do that. Any and all access is done by Sauce Labs employees. I want to talk a little bit about private versus public devices. This again is a question I get asked for on a number of calls, particularly in the financial services and banking industry, and particularly in EMEA for that matter. I've talked to a lot of our European customers about whether they should use private devices or public devices. So let's bounce them off each other for just a minute. Private devices have our highest security solution. It is obviously, since those devices are yours, assigned to you, provided to you and you alone, that is the highest security solution, even from a theoretical perspective. Public devices, though, as I've said about some of the elements that we have in place within the data center and a lot of the logical access that we've built in as well, means that it's obviously extremely secure. Both solutions allow for manual and automated testing, so no differences there. Private devices are secured with an IPSEC VPN, so we establish a tunnel between our two entities, our two companies, if you like. We make the right security decisions around what should go over that tunnel and how it should be tested and so on. Just to pause for a moment to go back to SauceConnect as well as talk about this IPSEC VPN tunnels. Generally speaking, those tunnels should be terminated in a DMZ environment or demilitarized zone environment at your company, so that you can have the confidence that only traffic from that tunnel can go to very, very specific hosts and locations within your environment. This is to ensure that you can build your confidence that the only thing going over that tunnel is what you want and expect to go over that tunnel, and you can enforce that on your end of the VPSEC, on your end of the IPSEC tunnel. Public devices can be secured via IP whitelisting. Again, on the customer's side of the environment, you can whitelist. We would share, obviously, the IP address information that we need to be able to go over the tunnel and access the hosts within your environment. And again, this can be achieved via a DMZ and then some routing on the back end in your environment. Private devices are dedicated and exclusive to you. Fairly simple to understand. There's no magic there. And then public devices are non-exclusive device use. This meaning that while you're testing with a device, whether it's the latest Pixel or the latest Galaxy phone or an iPhone or whatever, an iPad, While you're testing that device, it is for you and you alone. And then when you're finished your testing, that device goes through a process, which I'll talk about in a minute, goes through a decommissioning process whereby the device goes back into a pool and then becomes available for another customer to use, as you would expect. Private devices, you have access to them 24/7, 365. Again, they're exclusive and they're dedicated, so this makes an awful lot of sense. Public devices, the tests are queued if a particular device is not immediately available. So this generally only happens when a brand new device hits the market, a new iPhone, a new Galaxy Note, or something else comes on the market. Everybody obviously wants to test with it right away, just to make sure that everything's okay. And so it really only happens in very, very seldom happens, but it can happen. And in that case, the tests are queued. It's not like they'll be lost or anything like that. They'll be queued, and then when you come back to it, in all likelihood, those tests will have completed satisfactorily. Finally, with private devices, you get persistent custom device settings. So if you want to load a profile or install a certificate or install an app or something like that, and then you want another team, or you want to come back to it with the same configuration and do more testing, that's absolutely something that's supported. Those devices are dedicated to you. On the public side, we have a very stringent, deep device cleaning that occurs once you're finished with them. We take any and all remnants of your testing off of those devices, uninstall binaries, and remove any cruft that might have been left behind. So again, given my primary responsibility is security, I want to go back to where I started. So we're not just a team, we're an entire company dedicated to protecting our platform and our customers. It's very, very important to us. It's a core principle at Sauce Labs. We're continuous, disciplined, and driven. We strive to do the best we can possibly do. We put processes in place that are repeatable and that can scale so that we can be consistent in the work that we do and make sure that we can stand on it. Third, our commitment to operational excellence. Every day is a school day, I like to say. At least in my career, I've learned at least a handful of things absolutely every day. It's the reason why I love being in security. No 2 days are ever the same. And I want our teams and our company to learn something every day as well, because that commitment to excellence will show up in everything we do for you all day, every day. So I'd like to thank you for your attention. If you need to get in touch with us, our email address is on the slide. I sincerely hope you've enjoyed your SauceCon online experience, and we've got a couple more presentations and a closing keynote to come. So thank you so much for your attention.